Hi, this is Raj from MR Sportscars. In this video I'm going to show you how to check your car over before autumn and winter set in here in the UK. So obviously the days are getting shorter, it's getting wetter, the leaves are falling off of trees. So there's a couple of things I'd recommend doing to your car to get it ready for the winter so that it doesn't have any water ingress issues or corrosion on the front air conditioning condensers. So I've got here a 997 Gen 2. This video also applies to the Caymans, Boxsters of the same era, as well as the newer 991s as well, which is all the cars basically I specialise in, just Caymans, 911s, Boxsters from 2009 to 2015. It can also apply to the older Porsches as well and also the newer ones. But this is the car I'm going to be focusing on, which is a 2009 997 Gen 2 Carrera 4S Coupe. There is a little bit more advice I'd offer if it was a convertible, but obviously this video is specifically looking at the coupe that I've got here. You saw it fallen asleep, so even with the key, because it hadn't been open for a week, the central locking radio system falls. It goes to sleep. It goes on standby, and to wake it back up, either you need to put the key in the ignition barrel and just twist it sort of around 45 degrees to wake it up, or you can just tug on one of the handles, which will wake up, and then press the button again and then it will unlock without any issues. So that's not a fault on these cars. They just like to save the battery a bit by turning off the radio transmitter and receiver. So I'm just going to open the front boot because that's the first place I'm going to start. It's the most crucial, I'd say, on these cars, and then I'll show you some other bits as well. So you've got the front boot area here, and then you've got these plastics that all go around that section under the bonnet. So I'll just lift that one up. You twist those and you can lift that out of the way, and if it's clean then you can put it in there, otherwise I'd put it on a piece of cardboard outside, or if you're in a garage then just put it on the floor, but so that you don't step on it. So then there you can see the battery, some of the pipe work for the radiators, coolant pipes, air conditioning are all under there. Now if you just generally lift these away, these side sections, you can then literally just pull those out. They're hinged at the back, they're just mounted at the back, and then they're just placed at the front. So again, if it's clean, then you can just put it there, out the way, somewhere safe. And then again, just pull it up. You'll hear some Velcro, because there's little Velcro squares there. And just lift this one out. This one might catch slightly on the screen wash bottle, but that's okay. It is quite a tight squeeze there. You've got the air filter, the cabin filter there for the inside, which is tucked under, normally under a bit of foam there, with a little plastic there again to offer it more protection. Now in this area here is a shelf underneath the battery, and it has some drainage holes which are prone to blocking because when the water and leaves and debris fall on the windscreen and potentially the roof if it's on a downward slope, they go through these little holes around the wipers. Just there, you can see, just through there. It then filters over this panel here, which, as you can see, this car is very clean. If you check yours, more than likely this is absolutely covered in leaves, cobwebs, even like compost where the leaves have broken down over the years. It then runs along here and it runs down this section here, so you can see that slightly blacker edge there. If that was fully cleaned, it would be white. It was originally white from the factory, so that's, you can see over years it does build up like a thick layer. And then it runs down this section here, and then there's a drain hole just there. I'm just going to grab a torch actually so it'll be easier to see. So just get a bright torch and you'll be able to see exactly. So you've got there, let me see. So that section there, that little hole, is a drainage hole with a rubber bung in it that sort of stops the larger stuff falling through. But you do actually want to clean that out, and you can use a claw. Rolson do a claw for around £8, I think, which allows you to grab things out of there, or you can just simply hose through and push any debris through. I would recommend actually, if the car's dry, actually hoovering that out. So I tend to hoover this whole section out. And actually, since I've done this and taken it on a few test drives, it has got a few tiny little, like, well, a few tiny little seeds, but nothing major here. There's a couple of needles there again, pine needles, but nothing that would cause blockages. There is also another drainage here, which you can see just down in the bottom there. So those need to be cleaned out on this side. The battery tray itself also, it's worth just hoovering that out if you can, if it's dry, because that quickly builds up with stuff there. And just check this whole area here. So underneath the plastic scuttle there where the wipers are, just clean all of that out with a damp cloth and soapy water, and just rinse through the cloth a lot so you don't drag stuff all over it and sand and bits of debris and things. But I would recommend, before actually using any water on it, just to hoover everything out that you can, because I promise you that if you haven't done this bit area here is going to be very, very grimy, unless the dealer's done it. But most dealers won't do this unless they're asked to do it. Same with when you get the car serviced, you can actually ask them to clean out all the drainage holes, and they'll know exactly what to do and what I'm explaining here. But it's worth asking the question when you're getting the car service. If it's due a service in the next couple of months, definitely ask them, can you clear out the drainage holes? They might charge you an extra hour's labour, but it's well worth keeping this area all clean under here. So on this side, it's the same story. You get water running down this side here, along that channel there, and then you've got a drainage one there. And you can see there's a couple of little bits there. There's actually a clip there from somewhere, which I'll grab. It's like a bracket for something, so I'll figure out where that goes. And there's a couple of little leaves there, but nothing that will block that drainage there. And then there's another one. I don't know if this is going to be easy to see. I'm trying to shine a torch on it. It's next to the battery at the back there, at the bottom. I'm shining a torch right on it now. Hopefully you can see it. Basically it's just down in that section there, and again, make sure that's all unblocked. This whole area is hoovered out, so that there's no sort of residue of things sitting there rotting away, which can cause it will take a long time, but it will cause rust. Actually, I've figured out where this bracket goes. It actually goes on here, because I've just seen the other side has exactly the same. Oh, I put it the wrong way around. There we go. So that is that there, back where it should be. The battery tray basically pulled it out and it just dropped down there, so that's good that that's fixed up. The other thing you may want to do is actually go further and lift these off, because there will be a lot of debris in this area here, because most people wash the car but they don't lift these plastics, and they're actually very easy to lift. They don't break or get damaged. Just be careful not to catch the bodywork as you pull them off. Let me just turn my torch off. Now the other area that does get a lot of stuff build up is under here. So I'm just going to lift this out. Now the easiest way to do it, I find, is to gently bend those inwards so that it lifts this little tab out of the bodywork that's behind the wings. And then you just basically gently, there's 4 bits of like a more heavy duty Velcro system which hold this. So there's no screws in this part, and what you do is you gently just sort of pull it out, and there'll be again a lot of stuff back here if you haven't done this. Some of the pads lose their stickiness, that's quite normal, but there'll be a couple hopefully that hold that panel down. So yeah, you can hoover that all out and then use a cloth around there, and just basically keep that all clear as well, because normally you'll have a lot of, where it runs down the sides here, a little bit of mud and stuff that's just literally in the air that builds up over the summer, and then it comes down in the rain, it runs down here, and then it sort of all sits here as a residue. So this is one of the first things we do actually when we clean a car when we first get it, is basically take all of that stuff off and clean all of this area with a hoover, and then use a cloth and very hot water, soapy water, and actually a pressure washer, very carefully aiming it out of the car, not towards the boot, but out onto the bodywork, so it basically just sprays out all of that rubbish that does sort of sit in those areas. It's so common, and in fact when we inspect the cars, I do lift all those panels, and the owners are normally shocked because their paintwork's all beautiful and gleaming, and you pull up there and there's like soil here, there's cobwebs and leaves there. This bit is completely covered in cobwebs with loads of leaves and sometimes even water sitting there, so that's all drained away. If it does get to a certain level, it will start running into the cabin, so it's very crucial to keep this area clear and stop the water from building up and sitting on that shelf, because it can cause you issues later on with water running into the car and then causing electronic issues further down the line. So please do check this, because it can save you some very big bills, just spending an hour or two just cleaning that area, plus two other areas which I'm going to show you now. Now the first one is your front condensers. So in these sections here, you have your air conditioning condenser, which in this case is a black radiator. Well, it's a condenser, and then behind it there is a silver radiator, which you can see the bottom of just there peeking out, and they basically overlap there. One is obviously for keeping the engine cool at the back, and the front one is to basically ensure that the air conditioning is working. And as you can see in the corner there, I've deliberately left them in there for this video, there's a few leaves just building up there. Now, if you don't clear those out regularly, then that will build up, and then when the winter months set in and you take the car out and it gets wet, inevitably it will get wet if you drive it in the rain. This bit will then get very, very saturated, and those leaves will essentially absorb all of the moisture from the rain, and it will be like having a wet sponge sitting against your radiators and the air conditioning condensers. It will lead them to fail earlier, so they will actually rot in those corners, also in the top there as well. So the best thing you can do is, if you've got very narrow arms and wrists, you can squeeze through there, but it does put a bit of pressure there. On these Gen 2 cars, you can also feed a hoover just through there, all the way round, and sort of looking through here, but feeding it, looking through this section here, but feeding it through there. You can then aim the hoover end nozzle to suck those up. So you literally just want to pull all of those out. I'll just quickly try and see if I can reach them. No, I can't reach them easily without putting too much strain on those plastic grills, but they will be cleared out with a hoover. So make sure those are cleared out before the autumn. And then the third area, I would check, particularly on a coupe. Well, actually, there's another quick one as well. Quite often it's worth checking that there's no leaves and things in this section here, because again, that's a drain away from the windscreen, and that could stop water from sitting against the rear screen and then sort of working its way into the cabin through the seal. So make sure that whole area is nice and clean. There's not like a lot of residue and dirt there, because obviously when water runs from the roof, if it had leaves on, it would come down here, and then it would sit in that little section, that little lip, and obviously rotting it down through there is not a great idea. And then the final area I'm going to show you, so this car hasn't got a sunroof, so checking the sunroof seal and stuff doesn't apply to this car. But that's something else I would do, is check that the sunroof seal, there's an outer seal and an inner seal. Check that the outer seal is forming a sort of good contact with both the panel of the sunroof and the roof. Open up the sunroof and then check that there's little drainage holes that basically go from here down the A-pillar, and from here down. Check that there's no debris potentially blocking those. They're quite small little drainage holes, so even a little leaf could cause you issues with water sitting in the sunroof and then pouring down your A-pillar into your carpets. Then I would just inspect all of the carpets along here. So check that actually feel it. Feel if it's saturated with water, because it's very easy to go unnoticed that there's water sitting in this area here, and that's caused by an inner membrane between the door card and the metal door failing, so that it lets water seep in through the where it runs through in through the side of the window, which is perfectly fine. It's allowed to go there. It's allowed to sort of drain out the bottom. There's drainage holes at the bottom here of the door. If the membrane's gone, some of that water will end up in this carpet and it will get really soggy and really damp, and it will actually start to smell very, very damp in the car generally, and you'll find that your car actually does sort of mist up when you don't use it, even in a matter of hours, because there's so much water sitting in those carpets. So check that they're dry, particularly after washing the car. If you wash the car and you find that those are wet, then more than likely your inner membranes in the doors have failed. Worst case scenarios is that water then sort of builds up so much and the membrane is so broken that every time it rains, it basically then causes water to run into your footwell. And then unfortunately, there's a whole bunch of electronics under these seats, so it could well sit on those electronics and cause your car, it's the rear body module, I think there's also the phone module and a couple of other bits, the alarm as well. There's a couple of other bits in that section there potentially that can then not be very happy. I think even the Bose amplifier might be under these. Let's have a look under this one. So unfortunately, this is the lowest part in the car, and they have not very handily put electronics under here. So if water runs into the cabin, it will sit in this area and cause issues with these electronic modules under here. Specialists have seen it all before, so everything is repairable, but it's an unnecessary expense that could run into at least a few hundred, if not a few £1,000s, if you need to replace those modules. So not an ideal thing to do. Also, while you're here, just check there is a break in these carpets here. You can actually pull these carpets up and just check the foam underneath to make sure this is all dry, so you're not getting any water sort of just sitting there and causing dampness, causing issues which will arise later. You'll get mold growing there if you leave water in the cabin unchecked, because it won't dry naturally. If it gets into the undersides of the carpets, you need to lift the carpets up, leave the car open with the windows down, ideally in a garage of course, so that it gets a chance to fully dry out. Even put in kitchen roll, big towels that will just sort of anything else that will sort of soak up that moisture that shouldn't really be there. But that's all of those areas. So as I said, check all the carpets inside, check the lower carpets on the doors. If there is dampness, then take it to a specialist and they'll be able to take their inner door cards off, repair the inner membrane or replace the inner membrane, refit it, and then your car will be all good, and dry out those carpets. Check all of this area here. I don't know why I've got a torch on because it's perfectly bright now. Check all of this area here, the 4 drainage holes there. Clean up that scuttle, and yeah, clean up all these sides under the plastics and all this, and then regularly sort of clean out the leaves in those sections there. So I hope you found the video useful. If you have any questions about winter maintenance of your 911 Cayman or Boxster, particularly 2009 to 2015 is my specialism, but I can sort of give general advice. So just feel free to leave a comment below, and please do subscribe to my channel because I do produce a lot of useful videos for Porsche owners and prospective owners. Thank you for watching.